What's up, fellas? Long time no see. So people have been talking about this viral video of a round table of fellas discussing the question, is being fat a choice? Here's what I think about it. You have to evaluate that question, is this a choice for yourself and for what that means to you specifically? Do your best. Your best might not look like someone else's best because everybody has different lives, different experiences that shape them into the person that they are. What you see as something that is easy to overcome may not be easy for someone else to overcome. What can you do? What are you doing? Focus on that. In that regard, I definitely feel like you reach a lot more people with empathy. When it comes time to help someone, when you take that information that you learn, apply it to yourself, and then try to give it to someone else, you reach them a lot better by meeting them at their level. What particular difficulties are they having? That's how you best connect with someone whom you're trying to help. I feel like the entire conversation in general becomes this weird red pill, just conversation where nobody really reaches an understanding. And that's all I got to say about it. But what do you guys think? Did you watch that video? What did you think about it? And what do you think about this conversation? Let me know down below with a comment. You know, fellas, Q&As are honestly, personally, my favorite type of video to make because I can, bring you in with some sort of topic, get you click on the video, but then it turns into a discussion where we talk about many different topics in general. Very interesting stuff, some training related, some stuff that I think is just generally useful to y'all or things that I'm interested in that I want to share with you. I gotta say thank you to you guys for engaging with them because not only are Q&As a great way to just bring unfiltered content that is very, very useful to you in a very meat and potatoes way, but like I said, it's just fun for me to do. I also gotta thank long friend of the channel, Bells of Steel, because they've been supporting me for the longest, man, with all my training equipment, bench bars, safety squat bars, any freaking machine that I want, dumbbells, barbells, plates. They've sent it all to me, and it's been a great support system. It's the only stuff that I train with. Just wanted to shout them out real quick in appreciation just because our relationship has been so good that we're coming out with some Omni training equipment, bench bars, and a couple other things that we've been talking about. But that cambered bench bar is coming out soon for sure. And I'm really excited for that to come on the website for you guys because it's gonna come with a free program as well. If you're interested in getting any other training equipment, either to donate to your gym or to have in your home gym, please use my link in the description. It helps out the channel a ton. So again, thank you, Bells of Steel, and thank you to you guys because again, you allow me to lift freaking weights for a living, which is crazy. This next hot take though, I really need y'all's opinion on this one because this one had me cracking up when I saw it because I'm like, damn, he got a point. Chris Bumstead, I don't really follow him too closely. I have infinite respect for him as an athlete and everything that he's done for lifting culture as a whole, just from being a great athlete. He said something, and I'm gonna just let it play on the screen.
When I was younger, I didn't know what the I was doing. I was training, maxed out 2-rep, 1-rep maxes 3 times a week. And I was 20 years old, my body could handle it. And I built this crazy mind-muscle connection, this crazy compound strength, and just this ability to move weight effectively. The reason I'm so good at what I am now is because of how I trained when I was younger. So if you start off your journey and you're 18 years old and you're just doing perfect form with 10-pound deadlifts, you're wasting your time. Do it wrong, train hard, hurt yourself, figure out your shit, and you can optimize in the future.
Now, other than the get hurt part, I totally agree with that, man. I just made a video talking about how I used to freaking grease the groove on bench press, man. And honestly, if I wanted to bench as much as possible and didn't care about, aesthetics or just generally being well developed, and not even aesthetics, just being a physical monster all around, I'd probably try that again. I'd bench as often as I could. In fact, a good friend of mine, Dennis, as you know him, Freaky D, he didn't even follow a freaking program until after he got a 435 bench. He just bench pressed every day and ate freaking Chinese food. What I think Chris Bumstead means by this is that you put yourself out there and you try really hard to get better, and then you just acquire more knowledge and you refine from there. A lot of people get so lost in the minutia, meaning the small parts of everything, that they forget to attack those low-hanging fruits. They're looking so far up at that fruit at the top of the freaking tree that they don't see that there's a nice, juicy, girthy apple for them to pluck from the tree and devour, right? So get your low-hanging fruits, get your newbie gains in, and then once you've got a good base of, I know what exercises I like, I know how to do them pretty well, I guess. Even with Chris Bumstead, he said he used shit form. but you're well acquainted, then you can refine, bring in more knowledge, and start to practically apply things. I actually talked about that in the last video that I made, so check that out after you watch this one. I'll link to it at the end of the video. What do you guys think though? Let me know down below, because this is something that I'm interested in hearing from the viewer's perspective, or especially anyone that's a little bit on the newer side that feels like they're spinning their wheels and there's too much information. What do you guys think? Next question wants to know, is benching 3 times a week excessive? I think it can be, for sure. Let me talk about why that can be, because on a lot of my programs that I've been releasing recently, it is like 2 to 3 times frequency on the upper body, and that's in like a hypertrophy program, not even like in a powerlifting or a bench only program. I think fellas can want to go too hard and heavy on the bench press too often because they want it to be bigger, they want to bench more. And that is a great way to go nowhere, especially when you're doing that 3 times a week. You're never gonna go anywhere if you're maxing out or close to it. And that could be for a single, 3 reps, 5 reps. If you're maxing out, you're building no momentum. You're just going as hard as you can. It's an analogy I use all the time. If you start sprinting, you'll move really fast at first and think this is the best way to freaking get from point A to point B. And then you start slowing down, and then you start slowing down more. And now you're trying really hard to move really fast, but you're going nowhere because you can't sprint forever, as opposed to pacing yourself out, jogging, sprinting, walking, and pacing yourself in that way. It's the same thing with your training. You have your days where you're horsing weight, then you have your days where maybe you're working on a deeper range of motion with less weight, and then you have another day, if you're doing it 3 times a week and you're benching, where it's just technique work. If you know how to do that and make that light work productive, 3 times a week benching is a great tool, or two times even. But if you don't know how to do that, what you need to do is you need to go on freaking Boost Camp, go on one of my programs, and just follow it as written. You use code Omni, you get all the programs for free. If you say, forget your programs, I want to run someone else's freaking program that has bench press on it, you have access to those as well. But you find a template and you follow it. And if you don't want to do that and you really need someone overseeing you, you hire a freaking coach. But until you know what you're doing, yeah, it probably can be too much, especially if you're just like every other guy and you want to get a big bench press and you max out all the time. And then you're going to the gym and you want big arms, so you're curling 5 times a week. Oh, you want big legs too, so you're fucking squatting 5 times a week. People tend to do way too much all across the board, and when you want to get great, exceptional results across the board, you just can't do that. All right, next question. Good friend Faz wanted to know, how can you get better about being objective when it comes to your everyday thoughts and actions? Faz makes great content. Faz lifts, very insightful stuff that's gotten me to reevaluate how I do certain things in my training. Very, very good content, very, very good channel. Check it out. I'm sure Faz already has an opinion on this, and he used to be a teacher. He's just asking a good question so I could talk about it to you guys and to also know my opinion on it. I thought a lot about this question when he first posed it to me, and eventually I came to the conclusion that the best thing that you can do is just make sure that you have good friends. The problem with being objective about your actions and your thoughts is that sometimes people have their heads so far up their own behinds, and they have like this negative feedback loop, or they're part of a collective where everybody they can't disagree on anything because it's like, fuck you if you do that. So I think that the best way to avoid that is to just have good friends that will challenge your perspectives, will give you their perspectives, which are unique, and also be open to some criticism as well, because that allows you to take those subjective experiences and then apply them to your subjective experiences and say, hey, look, is this the best way for me to go about this? Is this guy full of shit? Next hot take seems pretty mundane, but I'm gonna say something to make it funny, to bring it full circle. But they say cardio is criminally underrated. I feel in my mind that cardio is properly rated. It's a good way to regulate fat loss, get your activity level in, to be able to eat a little bit more, and overall it's just good for you. I know that Dr. Mike made a video maybe a couple months ago talking about how cardio and I think conditioning was overrated. I'm paraphrasing, but I thought to myself that a lot of times for engagement, people tend to take something that's properly rated or loved and then say that it's overrated or garbage. So like you did the same thing with hip thrusts. Very similar thing. I'm gonna just put it like to you this. I'm gonna just put it to you like this, bro. Conditioning is important insofar as you are able to train enough to be able to get better at your training. So you don't need to be able to run 100 meters in less than 10 seconds to bench press more, to get bigger arms or bigger legs or gain 5 pounds of muscle. But you do need to be able to train hard for an appreciable amount of time at a good amount of intensity and be able to do that, as I said, over a long period of time. I'd say cardio is definitely properly rated, but I see why you asked that question, because when someone says that something that you like, that is generally liked, sucks, your natural reaction is then to say, well, no, I need to swing the pendulum in another direction. But no, bro, it's properly rated. People are gonna do cardio, they're gonna do freaking hip thrusts until the end of time, as long as we're still lifting weights. So that's how I feel about that one. What do you guys think? This next one's a fun one. Top 5 video games. This one is really interesting and I had to think about it a little bit. What do you guys, before I get into mine, what are your top 5 video games? It could be any console, any generation. And I'm not one of those guys where, like, if your top 5 is different from mine, I'm gonna argue you down in the comments. I genuinely wanna know, because maybe I'll check it out. My top 5 though is, starting from the bottom, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. That game defined a freaking generation. Even if you don't like the anime, you more than likely played that game when you were younger, right? Number 4, it's somewhere between Tekken 3 or Tekken 5. Tekken 3 just because it was the first one I played. I played Tekken 4, I didn't really like it as much. Tekken 5 was incredible though, and I think I'm gonna put that in number 4. Number 3, picking between either Zelda Wind Waker or Twilight Princess. Both very quality games that I think you could put in the spot of best Zelda game. But personally, I like the aesthetic of Twilight Princess more, and I like the overall themes of the story a lot better. And I just feel like it's a more polished game overall, but Wind Waker is still incredible. Number 2, it's easy, Bloodborne. Nearly perfect game. And the only reason it's not number 1 is because I think that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which just came out, I think a couple months ago, it hits on an even higher echelon, because it really did something that I thought was impossible. It took the perception that we had of Final Fantasy VII when it came out on the PlayStation, and everything that we thought about how expansive the world and the characters were. It took our nostalgia view, and things tend to be worse in reality when it comes to how we view them nostalgically. Does that make sense? So sometimes that nostalgia doesn't live up to what it is in reality, but they took that and they turned it into something that recaptured all of those elements in a way that is just revolutionary, even down to the character writing, the gameplay, the quests, everything. Like, so if you loved Final Fantasy VII, definitely hop on Final Fantasy VII Remake and the sequel to it, Rebirth. I'm really excited for part 3 to come out. Next hot take, smiling in pictures is lame. I posted this one up on my Instagram stories. It wasn't a hot take from me, it was from Austin Dunham. And people really were chiming in on it, so I figured it'd be nice to talk about on YouTube as well. Austin Dunham makes great calisthenics content. I can't recommend that part of it enough. But when it comes to stuff like this, I just feel like this particular piece of advice was hella goofy, bro. Nobody thinks you're lame because you smiled in a picture. And this is talking about specifically in the capacity of like a dating app, for instance. So like, don't smile in a picture fucking slyly smirking it and girls will like it better. It's ridiculous, bro. So I kind of get what he's getting at with it, but you can only be so focused on the way that you present physically. You can't make a woman or anyone that you're interested in feel safe, appreciated, engaged, none of that, without talking to them in person. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to connect with someone when you just take time out of your day to have an engaging conversation with them. That's so rare in the age of social media, where it's so easy to just hop on a dating app or Facebook or whatever social media you use and talk to someone virtually and present whatever you want to present to them. But that authentic conversation is so rare that it's stunning. It shocks people. It makes their day. Now imagine if it's a young lady. Need I say more? There's no competition there. Next hot take. Frequency training is overrated for hypertrophy training, meaning doing something more than once a week. What do you guys think about that? I'm gonna give you my opinion. I have a strong opinion on this, but you let me know what you think first. I do not agree with this, and let me tell you why. There's a bench sage, and by bench sage, I mean this is a fucking guy in his early to mid 40s that does nothing really but go to the gym and bench and train his freaking biceps and triceps, bro, and his shoulders. Yet he is like 220, about my height, extremely top heavy 220. So there is no comparison when it comes to the upper body mass. He has like, I would imagine over 20-inch arms. I mean, this is just like a solid, dense guy that benches like 455 or something like that. And as I said, he's in his mid 40s and he's natural on top of all that. He does nothing but train his arms, from what I can see, at least 4 or 5 times a week, because I go to the gym about 4 or 5 times a week. But I'm doing different things when I go to the gym. I'm training arms 2 or 3 times a week, definitely not 5. And he's benching on most of those days as well. The man hits 3 plates for reps on incline. Just an all-around solid dude. Now, one, obviously way above average genetics. 2, I don't know what his prior training history was like, so this could just be him maintainer or whatever. And 3, he doesn't really train legs that often. And when you have all those things combined, you leave yourself an environment where, yeah, if you train with higher frequency, it's going to give you a better result because you have more room to recover. But there's still something to be learned there. If you can train and do something well and recover from it and then do it again additionally some other time in the week, why would you not do it, right? So if you can grow from it, do it. That's a different discussion from volume. We're talking specifically frequency here, because volume is just how much you do when you do it. But doing something frequently throughout the week, it's like these are like, I'm getting a little pissed talking about it now, but it's like the easy shit that just people just want to get out of doing for some reason. The freaking protein. It's easy, bro. Every jacked motherfucker that I know eats a lot of protein. I don't care where you get it from. It could be from fucking tofu, chickpeas. It could be from lunch meat. I don't care where you're getting it from, bro. Freaking eggs. I don't care. Get a lot of protein in. It could be freaking sleeping a lot. Nobody wants to go to fucking bed on time. Nobody wants to drink a lot of water. Now it's like I don't want to train my arms 2 times a week. Bro, come on. This is the easy shit. I'm not gonna let myself get super pissed, bro, but I'm just passionate is a better word, because it's like these are simple mistakes that I see people making over and over again. Let's just not do that. If we can do something well multiple times per week, and by that I mean like you're getting a good training. It's not junk volume. You're not arbitrarily just going to the gym to train arms to say that you're doing that, and you can recover from it. No fucking brainer, bro. I talked a little bit about volume in that last hot take, but this next fellow wants to know, what do I think the maximum recoverable volume for every muscle group is and what that looks like, and should they do that? I know Dr. Mike made a table showing like do this many sets of hamstrings or whatever. But even in that table, as I recall, he prefaces it by saying like, look, this is gonna vary depending upon the person. I really want to cut through all the bullshit and say, do what you need to do to be able to do well in your training and progress in it. If that's 2 sets, do 2 sets. If it's 3 sets, do 3 sets. If you need to do that multiple, or you can, like we said in the last, discussion that we had, if you can do that 3 times per week, you do it 3 times per week, and then that's what your volume looks like. So if you need to do 2 sets per workout 3 times a week, that's 6 sets on an exercise. Most people can do a lot less volume than they think they can, or that they need to, rather. It's a lot of new lifters and intermediate lifters that think that they need to do these Herculean freaking workouts to get better just because they see someone else do it. I'll use myself for instance, and I've been told many, many times, especially recently for some reason, and not only in my programs, but when people see what I do for training, they're like, you don't do enough back volume. Why is there so little back volume in this program? And in some instances, like Beast Slayer, it'll be like 17 sets of back a week. So here's the thing, fellas. I have a big back. Nobody can deny that. I also do the exercises that I need to do at the right intensities and the right volumes for me to be able to further progress in my back training. And it ain't low volume, but I think that people who watch a lot of fitness content may see someone who might also have a big back do a lot more as well. So then the question gets posed and then they're confused as to what they're supposed to be doing. Again, that's why whenever I get a question like that, don't take it personally. Don't take it personally if anybody questions what you're doing. They're questioning because more than likely they heard some motherfucker say the exact opposite thing that you're saying. Get them to think about it logically and get them to justify it in themselves. So I say, what do you need to do in your training to get better? For you, that might be even less than what you're seeing me do. It may be more than what you're seeing the fella that does a lot more back volume than me do, but more than likely not. Volume is like a dial that you turn to be able to progress in your training. You need to do more of it on average to get better the more advanced that you are. But that more is often a lot less than you may think. You can get by with less, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, you don't need to be doing 20 sets of really anything other than arguably maybe calves and forearms and maybe abs. That's about it. This next one's a spicy one just because this has been repeated so many times for years now, and it'll make sense to why I'm prefacing it that way. But a fella came to my Instagram DM today actually and reminded me of this. They said that Alex Bromley has the opinion of floating rows where you don't let the weight hit the floor, basically being more effective than rows where you start them from the floor and end them at the floor, like Pendlay rows, something like that. And as I said, Bromley has been saying this for years now. I've been watching Bromley for years now at this point. And when it comes to YouTube fitness channels, I do think that it generally has, on average, the best channel out of all of us when it comes to the balance of like entertainment and information. Can't go wrong with Bromley. I don't agree with everything that he says because I don't agree with this hot take at all. But it's less of me just saying that he's wrong about the benefits of floating rows, because he's not. Everything that he said about them is absolutely correct. I do think that there are benefits to more skillfully doing like a Pendlay row that I would want him to take into consideration and want you guys to take into consideration as well. What I propose personally, and this isn't just some Johnny one plate with freaking, conceptual knowledge about how to row. I can row 3 plates with reasonable form for like 8 reps or more. So like, and without a belt. So, and I know what the fuck I'm talking about. But I say that to say that I propose a row done from the floor, but you do it with a controlled eccentric. And there are a lot of benefits that come with that. And let me address like the main things that Bromley says about Pendlay rows, which are true if you do them this way. There's no eccentric, and the eccentric is the entire point of the row. So it's really a movement where you want to make sure that you're doing a good job on the lowering portion and that you're doing a good job on when you lift the weight as well. But if you're just crashing the weight down, you're not getting any bracing benefits, your upper back is missing out on work, and overall I just don't think it looks as cool as opposed to if you're controlling 2.5, 3 plates for a bunch of reps. But what you can do is really simple. You can just, as I said, control the weight on the way down. That mitigates a lot of the downfalls that you can have with a Pendlay row or any row where you start off from the floor. The benefit of even starting off the floor isn't so much in lifting more weight. It will be that case. If you're skipping the eccentric, you can do more reps and more weight. But the biggest benefit in of itself of doing it off the floor is that 1, you can re-brace after every rep, and then 2, you're able to be more consistent with your reps as well. What I find when you do a floating row is that your back angle starts higher at the start position than it does on a row off the floor. It just is what it is. And it can be a lot more variable, and again, in my experience, than when you're doing a row off the floor. And when you're controlling your eccentric and you're re-bracing, those reps just tend to look a lot more consistent. Now, when it comes to like the loading side of it, so what Bromley brings up a good point in saying that when you skip the eccentric, you do like the standard pendley row. Yeah, you can lift more weight, but what I found is when you control the eccentric and you do them my way, there's no difference between the two in terms of loading or reps or anything. I also feel like that when you do your rows off the floor, they carry over to a lot more things as well, from your hip hinges to they have good carryover to squats because you're building more brute strength, in my opinion, when you do them off the floor. All around, I find that they're a really, really solid movement that you don't want to write off just because if you do them floating style versus crashing the bar on the floor, you're not getting a good benefit. I always say let's get engaged with the movement more skillfully and then make it a more worthwhile use of our time. One last thing that I'm gonna leave you with, and we'll talk about the next one, is that for a lot of people, they say the same thing about squats. They say that squats aren't as good as a leg machine or whatever the case may be for whatever list of benefits. And then when you look at how they do their squat, no shit that they're not getting the leg stimulus that they want from it. But if you perform it skillfully, squat is just as valid of a tool as any other. It just has its own benefit. Next question is an interesting one, and it's related to what Mr. Chris Bumstead said at the beginning of this video. But is it worse for a new trainer or trainee or lifter to be too oonga boonga, so like too caveman, too simple, too I'll just go to the gym and do whatever? Or is it worse for them to be too cerebral, too caught up in what they're doing, too caught up in optimizing? I think that both are bad, and I want to talk about both. But I think that, honestly, I think that going too complicated is a little bit worse, because if you just go to the gym with the mindset that I want to train hard, I want to do more than I did last time, you'll definitely hit like a hard limit in your progress. No question about that, because you do need to do things more intelligently to progress long term. But you're gonna go nowhere if you're overcomplicating everything. If you're changing everything that you're doing every week, every couple of days even, I've seen, you're gonna go nowhere with that. That's why you got people who've trained for 10 years who reached like a hard cap on their progress. I know a fellow that, again, has been training for 10 years, and he looks like he's been training for 6 months. It's completely within their capability to do more, but because they overcomplicate things, they never stick to just one thing that works really well over a long period of time, it never goes anywhere for them. I also think, though, that a lot of beginner lifters listen to what very, very advanced people do when they say things like, oh, I don't track calories, or I don't track my training, or I don't track this. And they extrapolate that to mean that I can go to the gym and do whatever, you know. And the ones that just blindly go out and do that, again, they make no results. When doing something that is well formulated, that has things like periodization, good exercise selection in it, all that is taking something that we see really good athletes and lifters do throughout history and just define it in a way so that you, who has less experience, is able to do those things and get the similar results from it. Not similar results in that you're going to look like Liu Xiaojun if you do his freaking program, but insofar as if you train with that type of periodization, it will allow you to make progress over a long period of time where you otherwise wouldn't have been able to. That doesn't translate well when an advanced lifter says, yeah, I just freaking do this, when really they mean this, and that, because they haven't accumulated experience, right? So Oonga Boonga works like when you know, like, for example, if I say something like, well, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna freaking bench and just work up to a set that feels pretty good, and then I'm gonna go do something else. That means in reality that I'm gonna do ascending sets, which are gonna get more and more difficult until I get to a really difficult set. But by that time, I've accumulated like 4 to 5 sets that are decently challenging. Someone who listens to how I said that originally may think in their head, go to the gym, do 1 set of bench, and then do something else. That's not at all what I did, but you see how I didn't communicate it that way? A lot of advanced lifters won't preface what they say the way that I will on these videos. They just say shit. So in reality, bro, never think that you're too good to learn more or to just take a freaking program and run it. Like, you're not too good to periodize your training, bro. I'm sorry, you're not. Because the best people at the top end of what you're doing in your endeavor are doing that. So you're certainly not too good for it. I've been getting a lot of questions pertaining to young and up and coming lifters, bro. This next one is, what would be a good and effective program, but something that's still simple for a young lad to follow? So someone that's like between the ages of 14 to 16. Honestly, bro, if I could go back in time, no exaggeration, I would run my program Raider or my program Dragon Fist, which as the recording of this video may or may not actually be out, depending upon how quickly Boost Camp digitizes it. But regardless, I am going to be making a video describing Dragon Fist. It's going to be easily the best program in terms of quality of life, on top of being applicable to people. So I'll say more about it there. But I would run one of those two programs. You can go on Boost Camp right now, sign up with my code Omni, and get access to all of my best programs on there. Or if you wanted to run, just say you wanted to betray me and freaking run some, I'm just kidding, run someone else's program, you have access to programs written by professional bodybuilders, professional powerlifters, all kinds of professionals within the scene. But I can't speak to those. I can speak to mine. And I know that Raider is something that thousands of people have ran now at this point, found good success with it. And it is a very simple program. But also fun and engaging. You do a lot of different stuff on Raider. You hit on your basics like your squat, your bench movement patterns, hip hinges, whether that's trap bar, you want to have them on trap bar, that's totally fine, and the program is written for that. It could be conventional deadlift if you want to teach them conventional deadlift, or even sumo, or whatever variation that you want to have in there. It'll have you teaching them their basic isolations, how to train hard, how to pace out their training. And of course, you'll be there to show them form and things like that, I'd imagine. But yeah, overall, very simple program. I actually made a video detailing Raider that you can watch now if you're interested in that. And as I said, go on that link in the description and sign up for Boost Camp with my code Omni. You get access to all my programs there. Another great question for the community. This is one that I really want to hear y'all guys chime in about. So sound off, bro. What would you rather be in? So imagine that you have two choices. You can either go, sounds a lot like my freaking polls, bro, but if you've never been alive, you ain't seen a bald Omni-Man poll, bro. So pay attention to those the next time you're scrolling, because the polls get insane. But you either have the choice of going to a freaking packed commercial gym that has state-of-the-art equipment, or you can go to a gym that is less packed but has less equipment. I'm gonna give you an example, bro. This is my answer, by the way. I had a lot better of a time when I went to Toronto to train with Omar Isov, when I went to the gym that he trains at versus when we went to this freaking influencer gym, and it has state-of-the-art freaking equipment. When you're just around other people that are looking at you to see if you're looking at them the entire time, and everyone's just trying to be noticed, dude, it wasn't my vibe, and I had zero intensity there. Because ultimately, when I go to the gym, I say it to people all the time. When I set up this freaking camera right here, I'm like, bro, I'm so sorry, man. Is it okay if I record right here? I fucking feel like a Sammy sausage head. Is it okay if I record, I'm gonna point it this way? I'm really not. That's why I train in the fucking same corner of the gym, bro. I'm really not trying to be in nobody's way, man. So being around people that just feel like they own the gym, or that's how they feel about themselves, just wasn't my vibe. Versus when we went to train at like the main gym that Omar trains at, it was a lot better of a vibe. It had less shit in there for sure, but it had everything I needed. It had barbells, it had benches, it had a couple leg machines. Like, it was everything there that I needed. All right, next question. A fella is really having some difficulty maintaining his tightness on bench. He says he's recorded his form, all of his cues. He feels like he's doing them, but he just can't get tight with his warm-up weights that he used to be able to just completely destroy. Here's what I'll say. I think you're just overthinking what you're doing on bench press, and let me tell you why. There's only about one cue, maybe two, that you can actively think of at any given time and actually be able to implement it into what you're doing. You can't think about 8 and be able to do all 8. It just is what it is. I think that if you take the bench and you boil it down to, I am going to depress, meaning like, pinch my shoulder blades down and back, that's all that you need to do. So provided that you're doing that, and that's one fluid motion, down and back, that's all that you need, bro. You're depressing and retracting your scapula. That's all. Everything else should fall into place on the bench press. And I figure if you can do that, that's all you need. Now, when it comes to just generally being strong in your upper back, maybe let's just say in the instance where it really is just a strength thing on your upper back, you physically cannot manipulate your back underneath a bench press. That's very, very uncommon for that to be the case, by the way. I've seldomly seen that, to where your upper back is so weak that you just physically cannot get any tightness on the bench press. That just does not happen for the most part. Now, absolutely getting a strong upper back will assist in making that tightness better, but for you to get none, doesn't exist. But if that is the case, or if you want it to be stronger, just get really strong at your pull-ups, get really strong at your lat pull-downs, get really strong at your rows, and that's really all the upper back that you need for the bench press. We're on to the third to the last question, I believe, and this one's a really good one. It seems very simple on the face of things. How to avoid knee pain on squats. He went on to describe like what he's doing with his knee wraps and what weight he should start out with his knee wraps and all this. If you're having knee pain, one thing that I'm gonna say is to get ahead of it, or to restore yourself back to baseline to where like you have no pain when you squat. You wanna really aggressively put blood flow work into your training. This isn't like the day that I squat, I'm gonna do some warm-up squats to feel a little bit loose and then squat. No, it's looking like every day that you go to the gym, even when you're not training legs, you're doing some form or sort of blood flow work for your knees, because your meniscus, your patellar tendon, your quad tendon, those things don't get blood the same way that your muscles do. So if your muscles get hurt or they strain or something like that, or even if they're sore, they recover so quickly due in part to them getting good blood flow. But like your joints and your tendons don't get that. So you need to aggressively simulate blood flow to those areas by making sure that you have a pump in that area, because that supplies blood flow to everything. I like to do a stationary bike, front and back. You can also do a blood flow occlusion work with like an occlusion band to make the blood pool wherever you need to on your leg. You know that better than I do. Spanish squats are pretty good as well. After a few weeks or maybe a month of doing that, you should be back to baseline. And of course, if it's anything like an injury, get it checked out by a doctor. But once you're back to baseline, something that you should do with your squats, in my opinion, is evaluate why I'm doing them and how I'm doing them. If you're a power lifter, there's absolutely a way that you can squat, but most of y'all are not power lifters, so I'm not gonna answer in that capacity. But if you're doing it simply as a tool to get bigger legs, it just comes down to the way that you're doing them. A lot of people slam off their hamstrings and completely skip the eccentric on squats and bounce out of the hole, which is like, people have been doing that for decades, and you're gonna grow your legs squatting like that. A lot of Olympic weightlifters squat like that and have big legs, but one thing that I'll say is per the pound of weight that they're lifting, I see a lot of bodybuilders that have bigger legs than a lot of weightlifters. That's the honest reality of it, and they lift a lot less weight than the weightlifters do. They're all taking roids, so what is the difference? It's how you do the squat. So if you're controlling it on the way down, and you don't even have to pause at the bottom, but you hold tension at the bottom of the squat, and then you come up from that, that mitigates you using a lot of weight. It ensures that you're not slamming your tendons and your joints against each other, which leads to things like in your meniscus or your patellar tendon to not feel the best. And it also allows you to get a lot better of a quad workout. I'll tell you what, I don't squat more than 3 plates for between sets of 15 to 20. And it's because I squat like that now. And that's without a belt. I also advise honestly squatting without a belt for a while, because it ensures that you're positioned in a way to allow your quads to get the best stimulus possible. It all adds up to a picture where, in my opinion anyway, you're creating a lot more of a bodybuilding squat where you still care about lifting more reps and more weight, but it's less heavily loaded, it's more targeted to the muscle, and it's just a better overall long-term exercise than like slamming the weight down and bouncing out of the hole, or using your back a ton and things of that nature. And in that regard, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you stop it from happening by just making sure that you're doing the right thing to begin with, you don't have to worry about knee pain. But when you do have knee pain, like I said, just blood flow, patience, and maybe a little bit of reduced loading until things are back to baseline. Second to last question, what are my thoughts on deloads? Again, this is a very common question, but I'm going to give a very uncommon answer, so listen up. I never program deloads usually into my programs, which may be why they asked me this. That's not to say that I don't want you to deload. What I want you to think about is what is a deload, and knowing when to place them yourself, because for everybody it's different. When you deload is just dependent upon when you have gone too hard in your training to be able to recover and to be able to continue to make forward progression. This is failing everything, like you know you're eating enough, you know you're sleeping enough. You've just genuinely reached a point where you've peaked, whether that's in either literally you peaked your strength, or you just peaked the amount of intensity you can throw at the gym before you need to dial it back a little bit. What that's going to look like is different for everybody, because our activity levels are different, our strength levels are different, our lifestyle, our stress factors are different. And even in an individual, it is when you need to deload is going to be different. There's been times in my life where I've not needed to go easy on my training for months on end. But there's periods in my life where if I'm getting less sleep, things are more stressful, where I need to pull things back a little bit. So I would say go based off of that metric, as opposed to like every 4 weeks I need to deload. Well, no, you don't need to deload every 4 weeks. It's just dependent upon when you need to do that. And that is if you're strong as well, right? So things only in your training become more stressful as the weights that you lift get heavier and heavier. And this is coming from someone who's very, very strong. So keep that in mind. What would a deload look like for me specifically? Now, I'm not a big fan of just not going to the gym at all, like a lot of people will say to do, because I find when you do that, you just tend to detrain, meaning you come back and all your lifts just feel weird. You're less strong. Maybe you get sore really easily because you did literally nothing all week. What I like to do is, instead of going, say, to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, I may go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. Just is what it is, man. You do less sessions, but you're still making sure that you go in. You'd be surprised how much you get out of even just going to the gym maybe 2 times and just touching on every major movement pattern, not going super hard, but just making sure that if you got squats in your program, that you're squatting, that you're curling, that you're doing everything that you need to do in your program, just less of it and a less of intensity. You'll come back feeling fresh when it's time to attack it with more intensity and more volume. Whereas if you don't do any of that, I find that you feel a lot more sluggish, and as I said, things feel detrained. All right, OGs know that the BQ has to go last. Sometimes it's a hot take, sometimes it's a question. This is actually something that he and I were talking about, because we had a funny way of talking about it. We both had the same experience with this, funnily enough. But we were talking about James Harrison and how he's a former professional football player. Extremely strong at everything. Like, to the average person, when they see him bench 5 plates for a couple reps, that's insane. Or if he easily overhead presses 2.5 plates for reps, it's insane. But we had this discussion where, and mind you, James Harrison, as I said, is a freaking physical tank. He is as wide and tall and deep. Those are all the same dimensions. He's just, everything on his body is thick. Thick arms, thick neck, thick fucking head muscles. It's just ridiculous unit of a human being. Yet there are powerlifters who weigh like 180 if you go on open powerlifting, that technically bench more than him, that I know for a fact he would fucking flatten, bro. There is no competition. Like, if they grappled with one another and it was just a contest of strength, Dragon Ball Z style, where they're pushing their hands against each other, he would completely maul them, and he could eat them at that point if he wanted to. If he was some freaking wild zombie or something, he could do whatever he wanted, bro. And it got us talking, because we all know that fat guy in our lives that is just ridiculously strong for no reason, goes to the freaking gym once a month, crushes either bench press or deadlift, or can carry a freaking TV up the fucking steps much easier than we could. Like, I remember when I was much younger, and y'all know those freaking massive TVs that are like big ass boxes, basically. They're big screen TVs that used to have to be fucking huge in depth. I had to carry that up the steps with my dad. And mind you, this man has not touched a weight, even to this day, in a very long time. But even back then, he hadn't touched a weight in a very long time. Yet he was hanging with this teenage kid who could bench 275 for a couple reps. And I knew that I could bench more than him. And I knew that, like, he was not fucking with me in the gym, but like, he was hanging with me carrying this TV up the steps. It's just a different level of strength. What explains that? Is it like, guys, I need you to tell me this. Like, what explains what makes someone a house? Because gym strength is not always the sole factor. Because like I said, there's freaking fat dudes that are just ridiculously house for no reason. And there's freaking old men that like have no muscle on their frame whatsoever. But when it comes to like real world, like moving TV strength, it speaks for itself. That was just more of a funny one though, but I do want to know what you think about it. If you have any questions about what we talked about here or questions for next time, please let me know. Watch these videos now that you watched this one. Have a great day.